Today you'll hear a remarkable story about how a billionaire's daughter fell in love with a man her family considered unworthy, a man who saved her little brother's life. It's a story about love, sacrifice, and the price of freedom. Subscribe to my channel, leave a like, and drop a comment. For every new subscriber, I'll donate $1 to a charity that helps children in need. Amelia Duval was born into a world that most people only see in magazines: sprawling mansions, private jets, designer clothes, and events with names you only whisper when you speak of power. Her father, Leonard Duval, was the king of that world. He owned one of the most prestigious hotel empires in the country. His name opened doors, his signature made fortunes, and his voice, calm, cold, and absolute, decided everything in their lives. To outsiders, Amelia had it all, but the truth, she was a prisoner with silk cuffs. From the moment she could speak, every step of her life had been orchestrated: what school she attended, what music she listened to, who she could be friends with, even what color she dyed her hair. Everything had to reflect the Duval legacy. Their home, a marble fortress on the cliffs of the Pacific, had over 20 rooms, yet Amelia often found herself locked away in just one, her own. The security guards weren't just for show. Her outings were scheduled, her friends screamed, and any deviation was reported to her father immediately. The only time Amelia felt truly human was with her younger brother, Henry. He was only 8 years old, and already fighting his third serious illness. He was born with a fragile immune system, and every cold could turn into a crisis, but he was bright, curious, and full of strange little jokes that only he and Amelia understood. Sometimes, she would sneak into his room late at night, crawl under the covers, and just hold him while he whispered, "Emmy, when I get better, can we go to the zoo again? Just you and me, no drivers, no bodyguards." She always replied the same way, "Of course, monkey, you'll sit on my shoulders the whole time, and we'll feed all the giraffes." He would giggle, then cough, and she'd pull him closer, wishing she could give him just one normal day. Their mother had passed away 5 years earlier, and since then, Leonard had only become more distant. He wasn't cruel, he just believed everything had a price, even affection. He loved his children the way he ran his empire, with strict rules and quarterly results. He would call Amelia into his office and ask, "How are your grades? What did your tutor say? Did you follow the itinerary I had planned?" Not once did he ask if she was happy. Amelia had learned to smile in public, nod in interviews, and obey silently. But deep inside, something was beginning to shift, a sense of restlessness, like the walls were moving closer. She had dreams now, vivid, wild ones, where she was standing in the rain, laughing, dancing barefoot in a field, holding hands with someone she couldn't see clearly. She didn't know it yet, but life was about to throw a crack in her golden cage, and through that crack, something real would shine in. But not before everything she thought was safe, everything she had been told to value, would be tested to the breaking point. Because when your whole life is built on rules, it only takes one act of heart to tear it all down. The day began like any other in the Duval estate. Too quiet, too polished. But Amelia had woken with a strange feeling in her chest. A tightness she couldn't explain. It followed her as she dressed, lingered through breakfast, and didn't go away, even when Henry burst into her room, with his usual grin, asking if they could play pirates on the balcony again. They weren't allowed, of course. Not without 2 guards watching and a safety harness. But by noon everything cracked. It started with a scream, not from Amelia, not from a servant, but from the gatehouse. Then chaos. Henry had somehow slipped away from the guards during a routine walk in the garden. No one knew how. No one imagined he'd run that far. But something had made him bolt toward the side road, just beyond the trees. Maybe he wanted to see the beach. Maybe he just wanted to feel like a normal kid, even for 5 minutes. By the time Amelia heard the commotion and rushed outside, All she saw was the empty leash of his small dog, swinging near the hedge. A moment later came the sickening sound of brakes, too late, followed by a hollow thud. Her blood went cold. Henry had been hit. By the time she reached the road, he was lying crumpled on the pavement, a thin stream of blood pooling beneath his small head. The driver, a dark SUV, had already sped off, without stopping. People screamed. The guards froze. But one man moved. He wasn't in a suit, he wasn't carrying a walkie-talkie, just jeans, sneakers, and a worn blue jacket. He dropped his coffee on the pavement and ran straight to the boy, kneeling beside him with calm, precise urgency, pressure on the wound. Fingers at the pulse, quick, decisive action. Amelia collapsed beside him, breathless, panicked, tears already pouring down her cheeks. "Is he breathing?" "Barely," the man said, eyes focused. "What's his name?" "Henry. He's 8. Please, please help him." The man pulled off his jacket, folding it beneath the boy's head. He glanced at her only once, his eyes fierce, but steady. "Stay with me. Hold his hand. Don't let him drift." Amelia obeyed, clutching Henry's small fingers, whispering his name, begging him to open his eyes. The stranger worked fast, stabilizing the neck, slowing the bleeding from the leg, speaking into someone's phone, giving exact coordinates. He sounded like someone used to emergencies, someone who'd seen worse. Minutes later, the ambulance arrived. Amelia tried to go with them, but the paramedics hesitated, until the man nodded. "She's his sister. She's coming." Inside the ambulance, hands still trembling, she turned to the man. "Who are you?" "Noah. Noah Carter. I'm a doctor at the East Side Free Clinic." "Free Clinic? Free Clinic?" she echoed, surprised. That place was miles away, in the rougher part of the city. "Yeah, I was just grabbing lunch when I saw the car hit him. Lucky I did." "Lucky," she whispered, but her heart said something else. Fate. At the hospital, everything blurred. Machines, doctors, paperwork, tests. Noah stayed. He wasn't on duty, he didn't have to, but he waited, leaning against a wall, quietly giving advice when nurses seemed unsure, never once asking for credit. Later, when the surgeons confirmed Henry would survive, Amelia cried again, this time from relief. She found Noah in the waiting room, sitting alone, sipping bad coffee from a vending machine. She walked over, still in her designer coat, but suddenly feeling like a stranger in her own skin. "Thank you," she said softly. "You don't need to," he replied. "I'd do it again. Why, you don't even know us." He looked up, studied her for a moment. "I didn't need to know. He's a kid. That's enough." She sat down beside him, something inside her cracking wide open. In that moment, surrounded by sterile white walls and fluorescent lights, Amelia realized something terrifying and beautiful. This man, a stranger, had done more for her brother in 5 minutes than most people in her life had done in years. And when their eyes met again, something silent passed between them. Recognition, not of names, but of souls. She didn't know it yet, but nothing in her life would be the same again, not after Noah Carter. Noah hadn't expected to see her again, after the chaos of that day, after the ambulance, the hospital, and the long sigh of relief. When the boy had stabilized, he assumed Amelia Duval would vanish back into her world, the world of penthouses, security teams, and designer lives, untouched by anything real. But a week later, she walked into the East Side Free Clinic, dressed not in silk, but in a simple blouse and jeans. She looked out of place, like a porcelain figurine, dropped into a mechanic's garage. Noah saw her before she saw him. He was helping an older man, with a wrapped foot, when she stepped into the waiting area, holding a box of something, vitamins, maybe, or donations. He finished with his patient, and approached slowly. "Miss Duval," he said, a little guarded. "Did you get lost?" Amelia smiled, but there was hesitation in her eyes. No, I'm here for a reason. He folded his arms. Let me guess. Charity. She flushed slightly. Yes and no. I wanted to thank you again. But also, I wanted to see where you work. I brought supplies. And I asked around. You're underfunded. He gave a short laugh. Underfunded is polite. We're a band-aid on a bullet wound here. Then let me help, she said quickly. I can talk to my father's foundation. We can. He cut her off gently. Look, I appreciate the thought, but I've been in this game a while. Rich people don't usually show up unless there's a photo op, or guilt. Her voice was quiet. It's not guilt. Then what is it? She didn't answer, because even she didn't know. Not entirely. All she knew was that something shifted in her the day Noah saved Henry, and now, being near him, felt like breathing real air for the first time. He didn't push. He just nodded, turned, and walked her through the clinic, the peeling walls, the too small pharmacy, the staff who hadn't taken a proper break in weeks. He showed her the records they kept on paper, because the system was outdated, the waiting list for kids with asthma, the shelves of expired equipment they still tried to use. Amelia listened, asked questions, took notes, and then she came back. Not just once, not with a film crew, not for credit. She came with supplies. She helped reorganize the filing cabinet. She even cleaned storage rooms. The staff stared at her in disbelief at first, but slowly began to smile when she arrived. So did Noah, though he tried to hide it. Still, he remained cautious, not rude, but distant, as if waiting for the other shoe to drop. One day, as they sat outside the clinic during a break, Amelia offered him a sandwich she'd made. He raised an eyebrow. Turkey, tofu, she said with a laugh. I didn't think you were the turkey type. You're not exactly the tofu type either. Maybe I'm still figuring out who I am. They ate in silence for a minute before she spoke again. Do you always push people away? Only the ones who show up in $1,000 shoes. She glanced at her sneakers. These were $30. He smirked. Progress. There was something in her eyes that day. Not just admiration, not just gratitude. It was softer, warmer. And Noah noticed. He didn't want to. He'd built walls around himself. The clinic was his mission, his shield. The world Amelia came from had only ever brought him disappointment, broken promises, and people who smiled with empty eyes. But she wasn't like them. She listened when he talked about his patients. She showed up when she didn't have to. She didn't ask for anything. One evening, after closing time, they stayed late to sort through medical donations. The light was dim. Their hands touched as they reached for the same clipboard. She didn't pull away. Neither did he. Amelia said quietly, "You don't trust me, do you?" He looked at her. Really looked. "I'm trying." She smiled. And it wasn't polished or perfect. It was real. "I'm trying too." And in that moment, in that quiet room, with its flickering lights and dusty floors, something fragile and beautiful began to grow between them. Not built on wealth, not built on heroism, just two people from opposite worlds, seeing each other for who they really were. And slowly, the space between them began to disappear.
They should have known. It couldn't stay a secret. For weeks, Emilia had been slipping away, claiming she was volunteering, that she needed space, that she wanted to find her own path. Her father, Charles Duval, had tolerated it at first, even admired what he assumed was a passing phase of noblesse oblige. But powerful men don't like being kept in the dark, especially not when it comes to their daughters. One evening, as the family sat down to dinner in their glass-walled dining room overlooking the harbor, Charles placed his silverware down and said calmly, "Tell me, Emilia, Who is Noah Carter? Her breath caught. Beside her, Henry froze mid-bite. She tried to stay composed. He's a doctor. He runs a clinic. Charles's voice hardened. I know exactly what he runs, and I know exactly what you've been doing. He stood, the calm shattered. You think I'd let my daughter throw away her name for some nobody patching up drug addicts in a slum? Amelia stood too, trembling, but defiant. He saved Henry's life. And now, he's using you. That's not true. He doesn't love you, Amelia. He wants your last name, your access, your money. She tried to speak, but Charles raised a hand. I'm not letting some street doctor sink his claws into you. The next morning, Noah received a visit. A man in a tailored suit stood in the clinic's doorway, holding a briefcase and a soft smile. My client would like to thank you for your service and offer you a gesture of goodwill. In return, he'd appreciate it if you distanced yourself from Miss Duval. Noah didn't let him finish. Get out. The man didn't even flinch. It's a generous offer, a donation to your clinic. Enough to fund you for years. Noah's voice was low. Tell him I don't take bribes. And I don't disappear on command. The man nodded, adjusted his cufflinks, and left. That same week, the clinic was hit with 3 surprise inspections, health code violations, half of them fabricated, were documented in thick reports. City officials cited unsafe practices, threatened to revoke licenses. Then came the headlines. Doctor, with a dark past, clinic under investigation. They dug up Noah's college records, took quotes out of context. One article even implied he'd once stolen medication, an accusation proven false years ago, but now twisted into a smear campaign. Patients stopped coming, donors pulled out. Staff were harassed online. Inside the clinic, the silence grew heavier each day. Amelia visited one evening and found Noah alone, sitting in the dim light, staring at a closed file. She rushed to him. I'm so sorry, I didn't know my father would go this far. Noah didn't look at her. Of course he did. I'll fight it. I'll tell the press. I'll pull. He finally turned to her, eyes tired. You don't understand. He doesn't need to prove anything. Just casting doubt is enough. This place runs on hope and thread. And now, no one trusts me. Amelia knelt beside him. Then we'll start over. Somewhere else. He looked at her like she'd just offered to move the moon. You'd leave all that behind? I don't want any of it without you. But even as she said it, a voice echoed in her head, her mother's voice, from years ago. Our name is a responsibility, Amelia. You don't get to live for yourself. You live for legacy. The weight of that legacy pressed down like a stone. Days passed. Her father doubled down, not with rage, now, but with manipulation. He sat her down in the garden where she used to play as a child, and spoke in soft tones. You think this is love? It's not. He's clever, I'll give him that. But he'll hurt you. He already has. Look around. You can't fix what this has broken. Amelia turned away, tears stinging her eyes. He kept going. You walk away from this family, and you lose everything. Your home, your security, even Henry. I won't let you drag him through this mess. It was the cruelest blow, and so she found herself standing at a crossroads she never imagined. On one side, her family, the life she'd always known, her brother, on the other. The man who'd shown her what it meant to live with purpose. She couldn't move. She couldn't speak. Torn between duty and love, Amelia stood suspended in a storm of silence, watching the two worlds she belonged to begin pulling each other apart. Noah didn't hear from her again. Not the next day. Not the next week. The phone stayed silent. The door never opened. The clinic, once filled with warmth and chaotic kindness, now echoed with absence. At first, he tried to tell himself she just needed time, that she was figuring things out, that maybe, just maybe, she was fighting behind the scenes. But with each passing day, hope grew quieter. Then cold. The clinic, meanwhile, bled out slowly. Every week brought new letters, more inspections, finance, legal threats. Donations had dried up. Patients were afraid to be seen there now. Some left apologizing. Others just stopped showing up. His nurses and volunteers, loyal but worn thin, began to leave one by one. Noah sat in the office most days, staring at charts no one would read, treating fewer and fewer people, until finally there were none. By the end of the month, the lights in the hallway flickered out, and no one came to fix them. He stopped fixing them too. In the corner of the office stood a plant Emilia had once brought, small, bright, a ridiculous gift she had said was supposed to represent hope. It was dying now. Like everything else. Noah didn't water it. He didn't care. He slept on the cot in the back room now. Not because he had no home, but because he didn't want to go back to a place where she had once laughed in his kitchen, where her voice still lingered in the silence. Some nights he'd stare at the ceiling, hearing her say his name, imagining her knocking on the door, but no one ever came. Noah Carter, the man who had once held pressure on a bleeding boy's chest with a steady hand, now couldn't hold himself together. Meanwhile, in the Duval estate, the curtains remained closed. The sun never quite touched Emilia's skin, the way it used to. Her world was silent, sterile, and made of marble. She moved through the mansion like a ghost. She ate dinner alone, walked the halls like a prisoner. Her father thought it was over, thought he had protected the family name, and maybe he had. On paper, everything was intact, but inside, something had crumbled. Her room was filled with things she no longer touched. Jewelry, silk, perfume, but all she ever looked at was one photograph. It wasn't posed, just a candid shot someone at the clinic had taken. Noah standing by the medicine shelf, arms crossed, laughing as she leaned against the wall with a clipboard. Her eyes looked happy. Real. She kept the photo hidden in a book on her nightstand. Every night, she opened it. And every night, her eyes blurred before she could finish looking. One evening, Henry wandered into her room. He was stronger now, walking better, still pale, but improving. He stood by the door quietly, watching her wipe her eyes. "Why do you cry every night?" Emilia froze. She didn't have an answer. Or maybe she had too many. She tried to smile. "I'm just tired." He sat beside her on the bed. "Is it about that man? The one who saved me?" She nodded slowly. "I miss him." "Did he stop loving you?" Emilia almost laughed. It was the most honest question anyone had asked her in weeks. "No, I left, to protect him." But Henry frowned. "Then why does it feel like you're the one who got hurt?" Emilia couldn't reply. The next morning, she sat in the garden alone, the photograph in her lap. Birds chirped. A breeze moved the leaves. Somewhere deep inside her, something started to ache again. Not the pain of loss, but the pull of choice. She had let go. She had walked away, but why did it feel like she was the one being erased? Back at the clinic, Noah stood in the hallway, staring at the dark, empty rooms. The lease would expire in a month. The final inspection was due next week. And after that, nothing. No one had to shut the place down. It was already gone. So was she. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon. The Duval estate, always controlled and rehearsed, suddenly broke into chaos. Servants screamed. The butler dropped a tray. Emilia, descending the stairs, froze as she saw two guards rush into her father's study. Within minutes, An ambulance had been called. The powerful, unshakable Laurent Duval, master of empires, feared by rivals, was lying on the floor, clutching his chest, his face pale and drenched in sweat. The paramedics arrived quickly. He was stabilized and transported to the private family hospital within the hour. And yet, nothing worked. Stay. They brought in the best specialists, cardiologists from Switzerland, surgeons from New York, all of them with resumes, as long as novels, all of them paid with quiet wires and confidential retainers, and still, no answers. The blockage was too deep, his body too strained. The medications weren't responding. By the third day, silence took over the hospital room. Machines beeped in cold rhythm. Amelia stood at the window, staring at a pale sky, her fingers trembling. Then Henry, quiet, pale little Henry, looked up from the foot of the bed and whispered, "Where is the doctor who saved me?" Amelia turned to him.
What?
That doctor? The one who made the blood stop, the one who smiled at me, and didn't talk like I was made of glass. No one replied. He looked at her again. He saved me. Why not him? The question hit like lightning. Lightning. For a moment, no one in the room moved. Then Amelia walked out without a word. She didn't grab her bag, didn't wait for a car. She walked to the staff parking lot, got into a dusty sedan, meant for errands, and drove herself toward the edge of the city. The streets grew rougher, louder, more real. She hadn't been here since the last time she saw him, since she left without saying goodbye. The clinic was still standing, but it looked abandoned. She knocked. No one answered. She opened the door. The lights were off, but she heard footsteps in the back. She followed the sound until she saw him. Noah, standing by a file cabinet, sorting through old patient folders. He didn't look surprised to see her. She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. Finally, she spoke. "My father is dying." Noah didn't react. "They've tried everything. Every specialist. They can't fix it. I don't know why. But I thought of you." Still, he said nothing. "Henry asked for you. He remembers you. So do I." She paused. "Please, I know I don't deserve anything. I left. I broke you. But right now, none of that matters. He's not just my father. He's Henry's whole world." Noah looked at her. His eyes held no anger, no warmth, just a depth of silence that felt heavier than hate. Then, finally, he closed the file drawer. What hospital? He arrived, 2 hours later. No grand entrance. No attention. Just walked in, wearing old shoes and a worn jacket. At first, the other doctors protested. "Who is he? This is unauthorized." But when Amelia whispered his name, and when the hospital director recognized it, the room fell silent. Noah didn't waste time. He studied the scans, reviewed the medications, made 2 calls, and demanded one procedure, immediately. A catheter, not the standard one, a specific variation, only a handful of surgeons in the country had trained for. He performed it himself. 2 nurses fainted watching. Another one cried when she saw the monitor flatline and then spike back into rhythm. Hours passed when he finally stepped out of the operating room. Amelia was sitting on the bench, with her hands clasped so tightly, her knuckles had turned white. She stood. He looked at her and spoke calmly. "He'll live, but he needs weeks of recovery. No business. No stress." Then he turned to leave. Amelia's voice broke as she called out, "Noah." He paused, but didn't turn back. "Thank you." He nodded once, then kept walking, back down the hallway, back into the shadows, back toward the life he had learned to live without her. The room was quiet, softer than any silence that had come before. Laurent Duval sat upright for the first time in days. Wires still clung to his chest. Machines still hummed beside him. But there was color in his face again, strength slowly returning to his limbs. Noah stood by the window, arms crossed, ready to leave. Lawrence's voice broke the quiet. "You saved my life." Noah didn't move. "I don't say that easily. I don't say that ever. But I owe you something. Say what you want. Money. A clinic. A name in the right circle." Noah turned to him. His voice was calm, flat, almost weary. "I don't want anything." Lawrence's brow furrowed. "Everyone wants something." Noah looked at Amelia, who stood in the corner, unsure whether to breathe. "I didn't do it for you," Noah said. "I did it for her." A long silence followed. The kind of silence that lands like a weight on the floor and cannot be swept away. Laurent looked at his daughter. For once he didn't reply. No argument. No commands. Just a long, tired stare. Amelia didn't flinch. Noah left that afternoon. No one tried to stop him. A year passed. Everything changed, though not all at once. Laurent Duval survived, but something inside him had shifted. He no longer stormed into boardrooms or crushed negotiations with a glance. He stopped appearing on the evening news. The world of power grew quieter around him. And Amelia, she stepped into her own light. She resigned from the family firm, refused the summer estates and the gala invitations, moved into a small apartment above the city. Not poor, but no longer surrounded by wealth either. She started a foundation, the Duval Medical Access Fund. Her name helped, but it wasn't what defined it. What defined it was how she worked. Long hours. Paperwork. Real families. Real kids. She fought for clinics to stay open. She paid for medication. She visited waiting rooms where no one wore designer shoes. She never talked about Noah. Not once. But his name lived in the hallway of the foundation's first building, carved into the corner of a plaque that read, "For those who heal without asking anything in return." One late afternoon, just after sunset, Amelia left a city hospital after reviewing a program renewal. She was tired, but it was the good kind of tired. The kind that reminded her she was useful. She descended the stairs with her coat in hand, her hair wind-blown, her eyes still carrying the weight of one too many cases. Then she saw him, sitting on the porch bench. Legs crossed, jacket too light for the weather. A file in his lap. Looking up at the sky like it had something to say. "Noah." She stopped walking. He looked over. Their eyes met. Neither of them smiled. Not right away. It was something more than a smile. Something quieter, deeper, more complete. He stood. "You still work too late," he said. "And you still never call ahead," she replied. They both paused. "So," she began, not knowing how to finish. He nodded toward the building. "One of my patients is in there. Thought I'd wait before heading back. Long drive, not really. Just long enough to think about things." She looked down, then back at him. "You look the same," she said. "You don't," he replied. She blinked. "You look stronger." A pause. They both stood in silence as the wind moved past them. For the first time in a long time, there were no headlines, no orders, no eyes watching from dark cars. He stepped closer. This time, there was no father to call her back. This time, there were no lies to protect, no reputations to shield, no debts to repay, only them, and that porch, and the late light of a new beginning.